Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
All right, everyone, it's 5:31, so we'll get started. We're at the fifth steering committee for South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plan. After this, we should have one more to go, so we're nearing the end of the steering committee part of this project. But anyway, today we'll be talking mainly about Chapter 2, draft Chapter 2 with the goals, actions, and strategies for the plan, and then getting into utilities, engineering, traffic, that kind of stuff. We'll do kind of a high-level overview of the materials that were included in the packet, and any conversation or questions on that stuff, we'll dive into that. So I'll turn it over to Steve to start working on that. Share the presentation.
So, good evening, everyone. Thanks for making it in. So just wanted to rehash what the changes have been a little bit to the concept from last time, but just also want to again reiterate that the land use concept in the plan is highlighting not specifically what the current property owners are going to put in the development. This isn't a proposal. What it is a long-term vision for what's allowable if development approvals process would go through, supporting identifying character and design parameters, and identifying infrastructure needs to support the development. What it's not is suggesting the property shall redevelop or be sold by development, restricting the landowner from its current uses, determine exact placement of roadways beyond connections of point A to point B, meaning in their property edges or to roads, what needs to be connected through that we're showing, and then determining exact lots and specific building placement. And you will note that we had this conversation last time. What are we calling this? I have reverted back to saying this is a concept. And so that's the thing to be noting here. This is what was presented at meeting 4, where you will see some changes in here, and I'll go through each one. So number 1, in the northeast corner, the amount of area that was shown as open space has been reduced based on further analysis, which allowed for the NMU to extend all the way to the eastern boundary. The medium-high density south of that also extended to that bend of the road that was a little bit shallower previously. So just, push happy there. Then you look at number 2, which is in the south, like off Collector A to the west. Previously that was all open space and was able to reduce that. And so you actually see an extension of the HDR there presented. Number 3, just to the east, was shown actually as uses. That lands may not be quarried, and decided through some of the goals and policies to consider that as preserved woodlands. So that has been reverted back to open space. Number 4, to the southeast, we did have that open space there, but we also made a better connection to allow for this trail from what is Commerce Drive, it's not gonna show the amounts probably, but from, oh, will now, Commerce Park. This portion was there, this continues it on all the way over to Collector D. Number 5 is some changes to the overall trail network. One is Fitchburg is intended to have trail built on portion of this. And we're just presenting long-term, it needs to continue all the way through to Collector B ultimately. We also see the segment then connected from Fitchburg Road along Collector A. It initially stopped at that roundabout. Now you see it extended to Fitchburg. Portions actually eliminated number 6 with some of the other improvements we did along Collector B. So you can see it's removed between Collector A and Collector D, but there's additional trails that kind of make those connections as well. We're just highlighting the primary routing east-west is going to be Collector A, which ultimately is supposed to go to Seminole Highway to the east, one way or another is the intention. So that's the primary route east-west. There are sections that are extended through the neighborhood in the southwest there. We did keep Collector D with the idea of number 7 is a discussion item of, again, it's outside the study area. Originally the school was described to be kind of where the business park is. That lands that are number 7 are not identified in the city's future land use map. In discussions of the idea of maybe a school, if something could be worked out between the school and the property owner because they are interested in this area, we promote it in the plan, but it won't be on the future land use map for this area, if that makes sense. So we will describe interest in the school. If not, it would be medium density residential. But the actual future land use map, this is what you'll see. So you can see the reduction in the number road network and just showing those collector roads are the ones that need to connect A to B through the lands. You can actually see some dashing of the landowners a little bit here, Basha in the southeast, Fitchburg Hills in the northeast, southeast is Basha, and there is Wolf property in the southern edge. There's a square box, then everything else is owned by Fitchburg Minerals. So went through a lot right there even. Is there anything we want to discuss of some of these changes that you see here?
Hello.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. So, do I understand that where the number 7 area is on the future land map, the word school will not be shown?
Correct. I'll jump up to the next slide. So this is what you'll see for the future land use map.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that indicate what would be brought forward for consideration in an amendment to the comprehensive plan, or does it just mean that it's silent as to what might show up for those lands in a comprehensive plan amendment?
Yeah, so the plan would be silent on that. So right now, the future land use designation for those parcels is agriculture. We don't have a neighborhood plan for that area. What our intention is to discuss the school site as a desired amenity, or I guess a desired part of the neighborhood, and talk about it throughout the plan, its importance to the neighborhood. If the Verona School District were to decide to pursue a school in this area, but it wouldn't be part of the future land use map in that area. But I think it's the plan sets up the possibility of a school happening in this neighborhood.
Hey guys, Chad Weezy here from the school district. I guess I would prefer to see a school called out on some corner of the formal plan. I know our school board would like to see the same. I know those always don't come to fruition because it still takes the district working with a property owner. But I do believe if this development has the possibility to put out enough students to justify an elementary school, it's potentially short-sighted for us to have to bus students all over our school district again because we missed it in the master planning exercise.
Thank you, Chad. That is our intention, is to discuss it in the plan and have it set up in the plan. It just won't be on the future land use map outside of the study area, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Brad, you will say that the city intends to be looking globally on the comp plan. And
Yeah.
that could be another topic at that point.
Yep.
That site makes sense to me. Is there a plan B? You know, if the city says, you know, based on communications with the school district, somewhere in here, it's got to go.
I think that would be an interesting discussion. We should talk more about that. I think the terrain might be a challenge in most of the site.
Yeah.
It is an ideal site if there was one incorporated with its blending of the different uses, a central portion of what is residential of this neighborhood, the potential of park space and some woodlands being still existing by the end, hopefully. And as discussed, they're looking at 25 acres. If there is a additional park space that could support some shared rec spaces. And so that's what you see, basically, what's not shown as road or outside of these dashed lines of the intended residential area. So you see what space is really for park and school would be needed. I mean, could it be blowing out most of what we're seeing in the southern end, but then you're kind of taking away, depends. If this becomes a medium density residential and it's actually all in this portion, it just changes the outlook of what we're presenting, but maybe there is something that could be in this portion here. But you'll be modifying the road network significantly through that area.
But I mean, what would you be looking at time-wise then? I mean, let's say that area 7 there, you have to make an amendment to a plan at some point down the road, the landowner's gotta be amicable to it, blah, blah. I mean, you could have kids already in high school by the time you get a school in there.
I would anticipate that area would probably be earlier on the development timeline than much of the rest of the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood.
But it's likely in the process to be a minimum of potentially 5 to 7 years before it's even available.
Yeah.
Right. And then the landowner's gotta be willing to not wanna give it to the highest bidder. I mean, there's just the simple business piece of it too, that the school district's not gonna be able to outbid somebody else.
I
Hello.
guess I would like to know what's your underlying thought?
That there has to be a school somewhere, and if it can't go here, does the city have another location nearby that potentially another 600 kids can go to school? I mean, it doesn't necessarily in here, I'm just wondering if the city is it outside of what we're seeing here, that, well, we've got some property here where a school potentially, you know what I mean?
Isn't it I think it's my understanding that the school has looked at other areas to potentially put a school on that are not that is not here. And I can assure you that if the school makes an offer, on some of our property, we will absolutely consider it. And it is going to have to be commensurate with what the value of the land is in this area. We just don't want and we would support the school in pursuing a minor plan amendment if in fact they came up with an offer that we can all agree on in that area number 7. We would support them in a minor comp plan amendment to get that area done. But we just don't want, it's outside of the study area, and we don't want people to think it'll be a school from now and forever.
Right, Bill, and I'm just saying, because it's outside the study area, I guess that's my point is, what's Plan B?
Yeah.
Like, you're still gonna have kids there, so what's Plan B? Is it, 2 miles to the south? I mean, does the city have some property that could potentially be offered to the district, or the district could make an offer on if things don't work out the way you'd like them to?
I think that would be a good discussion too.
Yes, we do own quite a bit of land from the south end of this study area to Grandview Road. So there's, within the property that we own, there is quite a lot of potential beyond what was identified in number 7.
Yeah, and I'm not going to speak for the school district, but I want to, I think one of the important aspects of a school in this area is that it's a kind of a central focal point of the neighborhood, and having it south on Grandview wouldn't necessarily achieve that, especially if a future FUTA doesn't get extended past where we are now. As of now, this future urban development area at South Stoner Prairie is the furthest west and south that we have planned.
That site, those lands that are outside the planning boundary but arguably should be in the planning boundary, is central to not only the neighborhood we're planning right now, but existing neighborhoods to the north and west that make all of that area walkable. Further, my recollection from early feedback from the school district is, on the question of do we need a school or not, the answer was, well, it depends on how much residential is here. This plan has a lot of residential in it, and so my understanding is we've tipped over to this area needs a school. That's my impression.
Can you remind me what Verona has planned on the other side of Fitchburg Road? Do they not have something planned for the not too distant future?
On the other side of Fitchburg, I'm not sure. There is a property over on the other side of Seminole that, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but that would be a high school, I believe. And that's long-term.
Yeah, so we currently own a piece of property that we have designated for a high school. And that's essentially across the street from Stoner Prairie and Savannah Oaks on Lacey Road. So that's a 60-acre parcel there that we recently purchased. We've also purchased a piece of property in kind of central west Fitchburg off of King James Way. But we have a concentrated student population there that we're currently busing to all of our elementary schools in Verona proper. And that's part of the reason I asked for a seat at this table from the get-go is, we essentially bought an undeveloped block in a fully developed portion of Fitchburg, right across the road from Target, that was really our last hope at having an elementary school that students in that portion of Fitchburg could walk to. And it has caused some inequities in our school district with, in my opinion, kind of short-sighted planning around ways to build schools where the kids are. And that's part of the reason I'm here. So the only other parcel we've got that we currently have an option on would be the Jenny Farm, which is probably a mile to the south of this development and would not be anywhere close to being ready to be developed in terms of improvement in terms of utilities and everything else at the time that this is ready to go.
So I am hearing a strong interest of the school being part of this. I mean, obviously, it was originally where the business park is. This is where 7 is now is actually a better site, as we talked about. It's just that nebulous area that's outside the study area that never got a future land use designation for it. Strongly agree that the plan will describe this interest and have it in the concept. It's kind of unresolved if we're going to share that in the future land use map. It could be a discussion item for the comp plan update that's coming.
Yeah, I think maybe we should talk more after this about what a plan B option might look like.
Okay. Guess we're leaving that slightly unresolved.
Yes.
So is it my understanding that, again, what I had mentioned before, that no changes are going to be made to the area that's outside of the study area, except perhaps a comment in the written or discussion, but it won't show up on the maps?
It won't show up on the future land use map. I guess I would think when we're looking at the concepts and stuff, my intention was to keep it on the concepts, but the future land use map would not change. That would remain as agriculture future land use through this process.
So this is
Well, we're not too interested in that. That's not something that we could agree to at this point. I mean, we'd be happy to talk to the school. If they want to come and make an offer, we'll support them right and left. But for one big reason, it's outside of the study area. And there's no reason to encumber us with something that we have, no idea if it's ever going to happen. We've never been approached.
I would encourage that that the language about the school needs to indicate that it's our understanding there needs to be a school here somewhere. And so I hear what you're saying, Bill, but I also think that you're representing a big chunk of this land, and it's likely to land somewhere on your land, odds are.
I think we would be overstepping our bounds to put a restriction on something that's outside of our study area. I understand that everybody wants a school, but I agree with Bill that it needs to be clear that there's no expectation. And you start putting things on a map, and whether it's the official map or the unofficial map, if it's a map that sits somewhere, someone's going to see that map and say, oh, well, there has to be a school in Area 7 because that was what the plan said. And you're just going to I think you're going to run into issues down the road by doing that. And I think it's outside of the scope of what we were asked to do. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree generally with the fact that there needs to be a school and that maybe that would be a good place for it. But I don't think we should be showing things outside of the study area on the study map.
Yeah, I mean, I will say from past meetings, that has been an interest of the school. We actually had it on the concept for where Business Park is in the HDR. So there was a site within the study area. Now this is a better preferred site, and we thought we can bring in business by talking to some of the owners of how this could be an extension. So it's not totally out of the realm that it was discussed and was on the map at one point. Does that mean we need to, if that's going to be our line, is that because it's out of the study area, then does it mean we need to alter what we show in the southern portion here to show a school as an option for that area that is in the study area?
I think a comment, I'm going to be very consistent here. In area number 7, I'm not saying that we wouldn't agree to sell some land to the school, but I don't want it shown as a potential site for the school. I think, maybe there could be a line in the written aspect of this that the city and the school and the property owners recognize that as this area and the lands to the south continue to grow, that there may be a need for a school location somewhere between what's already in the urban service area and Grandview Road. That I could agree with, but not what you got here.
All right, we'll have to have further conversations about that. I think everyone is in agreement that a school makes sense in or near this neighborhood. And we'll have to figure out the logistics of how that's described. Any other topics from the updates here on land use?
I guess I have I have a question just south of Collector A. Now that's designated as park area right now, but in the future, if that land comes down, the reason that park area is there, the whole area, is because of the steep slopes, correct?
Portion of it.
Yes. So I guess my point is, if that area comes down, do we have the flexibility that can be used as buildable lots?
I mean, I'm gonna let the city speak on this. Generally speaking, of just where we have land uses, and I'm gonna go more to the policy map here to speak to that. The lines between each of the categories is flexible to a final design and engineering. This one you're specifically talking about is kind of between roadways and the Basha land that has single family. So it's not as easily stated like the line boundary changes. So the other point of just like the school now, we're talking, there was an idea of a more larger park to serve the neighborhood. That there was an immense benefit of having that steep slopes that could actually be a unique park scenario. But could that park be smaller because some of that reservation is no longer steep slopes? I don't know where you lie on, can you have more development along Commerce Park, but leave still the same amount of usable park space behind it? I don't know what the reaction of Brad's opinion about that.
My initial thought would be that we probably need to amend the plan to do something like that because it could significantly impact the amount of park space that is available to the neighborhood. If that were taken up by development, I think it would probably need to go through a plan amendment process to figure out, okay, where is the park space, that big, feature park going to be then, if not there.
I mean, you can see our point is if that does change, you have a lot of land there that is not, doesn't necessarily need to be a park.
And it doesn't fit what the original intention was there.
Topography you were hoping,
Just to clarify, we're talking about which site? We're talking about east of?
Talk about
South of Collector A.
this block was the idea of a community park. There was some potential opportunities of having the steep slopes from Basha land north. You could have a bike track through that or whatever, but there is some of that you're just not gonna be able to develop that.
And we're okay if that, I mean, we understand that, and we're okay with that.
So your question is if
The question is if this, in the future, if that is, do we have the flexibility to say, hey, this much park space is not needed? Because that's why one reason that park is as big as it is.
Yeah. So I'm confirming for Jason, does that, or more follow-up on that?
Well, now I know for sure which land we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is that, so some of the green here is stormwater, some of it is park.
No longer stormwater, we haven't gotten there yet.
What I'm getting to is the amount of park space and which units that park space is corresponding to. And is this park meeting the need of units on other current property ownership and development horizon.
So I did not include the map we had last time, I could pull it from last time, but there is usually a larger radii that you look at for service area with a park that size comparatively to smaller parks. And we were trying to cover the most areas. So yes, if that was severely reduced in size, I don't know if that's what you're intending by your statement, it would have less serviceable area to the neighborhood where residents are. But I don't think you're specifically saying it wouldn't be a larger park, you're just saying some of that park space is more, there's more usable of other part of that park space if you no longer have that steep hill. And so could some portion that you're making more usable as park be offset by putting some more development along a roadway?
That's correct. What we're looking at is if the slopes stay the way they are, it's great. That's not an issue. But if everything comes down around that, now we have a very large park space there that it doesn't need to be that large. So do we have that flexibility to do that without amendment to the plan?
So that was the question, and then Brad's response was it likely would require an amendment.
And my question is this planning area in balance in terms of the amount of park space that the current park dedication requirements would require of all of this housing?
We're not meeting the requirements.
We're not meeting the requirements with this plan. There would be more park space required under our current park dedication requirements.
Which has been noted as a typical acceptance through fee in lieu of to cover the reduction.
Cost of improvements, yeah.
So arguably, there's already a deficit here. I don't know how important that deficit is, but as compared to ordinance, there's a deficit. I was also wondering, in showing that much park space there, what is the balance of park space to units just within their property? And are we asking for more land than the ordinance requires just for their property?
No, I think we looked at that last time, and neither property was it meeting the requirements.
Okay.
Do you have figures on that?
We'll pull it from the last meeting. Maybe you can pull it up while I'm.
Yes.
Okay. She'll look into it.
Great.
That's Olivia. Sorry, she's on my team.
Brad, has it been the city's policy to, it's at the city's discretion, I assume, unless you tell me otherwise, whether to allow or not allow fee in lieu. So if you want to require the land instead of the fee, you could do that.
Yeah.
That's your sort of right of first refusal, so to speak, like land first, or if you're okay with just accepting fee for part of it or even all of it, it's the city's discretion to do that.
And unless, Deanna, correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
you are correct.
We can also take land in lieu of, correct? Or do we not do that anymore?
I know it's been done in the past. It's not something we're encouraging.
Okay.
So what is that your take, Jason, on these questions?
Well, I think, pending confirmation, one of the answers to the original question might be, even if you can get more usable space there, there's still a park supply issue that has to be met here. And we're not talking about asking for more park, pending the data. We're not asking for more park than the development within the property requires. So the city is probably wanting that park space, whether it's flat or not.
And I'm thinking those issues are probably why it would need an amendment, because I think it's a bigger issue than can just be hashed out in the flexibility of a site-specific development proposal. It's not like shifting the boundary of the uses, 50 feet, it's a bit beyond that, so. That would be my take on initial thought.
We're getting close.
That looks like the overall. Oh, Nope, there's
Nope,
east side and
split.
west side, haha.
So, east side only,
Which east side means,
means Fitchburg Hills.
okay,
It's showing 17 acres. Required is 45 to 88 acres, dependent on the number of units. And so
Requires how much?
45 to 88 acres.
how many acres is the whole property?
100.
How many units are we talking about?
And here we have updated, but that was between 670 to 1320.
Oh.
1,320 units. There's a lot of NMU, a lot of high density residential and medium high density.
Yeah.
So there's a shortfall of 28 to 70 acres.
And I believe that west side of the 23 is including the 2 park spaces that we had associated with the school outside of the study area.
Okay, and then west side was needing 23, provided 23 acres, which Olivia was saying includes what we were showing park in lands outside the study area. Also, let me get there, this square-ish area was shown as park there. And then there's the park that was on the previous, that was shown here. Now that didn't include this number 3 that we added in now, but there was 23 acres and it was requiring 50 to 90 acres.
50 to 90?
50 to 90.
50 to 90.
Yeah, so it had similar unit count, but there's a lot more area there at a lower density.
So Fitchburg Hills technically requires almost 3/4 of that property being parkland, green space. 70 acres of 100?
45 to 88.
Right.
Yes.
70 acres of 100? That's, I get it, it's, there's a lot of people there, that just seems, it's not
You can vocalize it.
And the development is sort of out of balance if we accept,
Yeah.
the
Right.
city's park dedication requirements as.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, so that doesn't, the park dedication requirements don't matter then, because they can't be met at all.
They matter in that it's gonna fund something else somewhere for part of the requirement, but.
So part of that could be contributed to the density of the high density in the neighborhood mixed
Right,
use.
yeah.
And I believe when I was doing the calculations, I may have also included the low density residential on the Bosch
On Bosch
lands
land.
as well.
Okay.
So I didn't do one specifically for just each landowner.
Yeah, so east
Oh,
I
east
could do that
includes
at the
Basha.
beginning.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, that makes sense.
not a lot of units there, but.
But it's still,
It's
yeah.
like
I think we
up
just
to
did
30 units, I
Yes,
think.
well,
I understand why, it just doesn't make sense when you look at the map, but.
And
You look
that's
at
why-
an ordinance, you say, okay, well, this doesn't make sense, it can't be done, but.
I don't know if that changes anything from what we're at right now. It sounds like what we're presenting is likely would require an amendment if you go that direction, wanting more development there.
I guess my question would be, has park staff been through this yet? And
Yes.
does park staff have an opinion, are they?
They want a community park in this area, and they want a large park with those community park amenities that's somewhere in the neighborhood. And the trails, they also want the trails.
It wasn't specific to the area, it was more of they wanted that community park, they wanted other parks, and they want everything to be connected by trails.
Yeah.
To exist within the neighborhood and tied to others outside.
But I don't know that they would be tied to that specific
Location.
large park location, so.
But if you heard where the shortfall was on both east-west was similar. So while it's a larger one than the others, it's because of the number of units. And it was shown split out in 2 parks on the west side.
One of which is outside our official study area.
I even think we included the area north of that, because I think when we were factoring acreage for the school, it was, if you can see the property lines really faintly, there's one that's covered by the MDR word right now, and then there's another horizontal property line.
There was shown up here in this
Yes.
space. So, and remember, the park is not just about active park space. It could be just open space. So like where number 4 is, and what we're talking about, number 3 is now all inclusive of that too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So here's the counts updated. I probably will round out some of these numbers, but I just left it in where we were at with the calculations. And again, this is using the future land use low to mid-range on the densities. And so you see in total, you're looking at from the lowest end, if it's just business park, 1,277. If you look at everything's residential in the area that was potentially business park along Commerce Park, that's where you get to that higher 2,369 units. And below there shows a little how that's broken out by property owners. So we're not showing what the highest range, because really the whole area developing at a high range just didn't seem like a number realistically to present in the plan. All right, vision, goals, and strategies. So we have originally talked about goals and amended them, and we've kind of further refined with the vision statement and then added some strategies to each of the goals. So you see the statement for the vision of the plan is South Stoneham Prairie will develop as a complete neighborhood that creates diverse and affordable housing options, expands job opportunities, facilitates sustainable design and development practices, and promotes social equity. Rating on 5 topics: housing, mobility, economy, quality of life, sustainability. Any comments on the vision statement?
Yes, if I remember right, didn't this come from a survey that was sent out in which, I don't know if any property owners responded to?
Are you questioning if you had an opportunity to respond to a survey?
I'm not questioning whether we had the opportunity to, but I don't, as I remember, there were 200 and some responses to a survey that, from your report that was sent out. And if there may have been 1 or 2 property owners that said anything, but just so that we're all out in the open here, it says nothing in here about maximizing the property owner's return on investment.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a direct response to that. I got to think about how that could be incorporated or not.
Highest and best use of the land,
Sure.
kind of comports to that, does it not?
I think we add that in. I think we're already kind of getting to a maximum of a sentence, but we could break that out into multiple sentences potentially to hit on those aspects. What's your opinion about what was just stated? Highest and best use of the land. I don't know if we, in my mind of the neighborhood plan, but saying maximizing property investment, that wording may not resonate well overall. So I'm wondering if highest and best use of the land does get.
Well, are we not supposed to, are landowners not supposed to have a return on their investment when they have to hire people to design the developments, build developments, and so forth? Well, I understand that a lot of people would like to have as much as they can on somebody else's nickel, and I'm sorry that I'm being so crude here, but I think that everyone has to work together to make it come out right, and that includes not giving, but allowing the property owners to receive a return on investment. Now, true, we're not a farming family, but think of these farming families that have acquired their land over years and years, and they're getting to a point where it's not profitable for them to continue to farm. And, this, you go to them and you say, hey, look, you're going to have to do what we want and give what we want. And if your family is not able to provide for themselves anymore, that's tough. I don't think anybody wants that.
Bill, I think I'd put it like this. I think it's implicit that any development, that the property owner would expect an ROI on any development. I think that's implicit. I don't necessarily think it should be a defining feature of the neighborhood. Like, when people think about the South Stone or Prairie neighborhood, I don't think return on investment is something that makes a good vision statement.
Well, I'll tell you something. If it's not going to happen, because nobody's going to buy the land if that's not, and nobody's going to sell the land if that's not a part of it.
Yep, I agree with that, and that's why I'd say it's kind of implicit to any development. That expectation is implicit to any development.
Okay, I'll back off. My apologies.
That's it. Thanks for speaking up.
And ultimately, this is a city plan, and the city's role here is to balance interests. The landowner's interest is one of those interests, but it's not the only interest. And in some ways, this plan is a form of market analysis of what the market wants that's going to be buying the lots that are going to be created because of this plan. So I think we're on the right track.
So housing, the goal that we worked through before was integrated diversity of housing types to accommodate a variety of lifestyles, age groups, and income levels. So again, strategies are new to this discussion that kind of reinforce the goal. So there's a few here. One is encourage a variety of housing types, forms, price points, and tenures. 2 is encourage building/site design to transition between low-intensity residential and intensive multi-unit residential office and mixed-use developments. We're not going to cover it tonight, but in what we submitted to you did include a design guidelines section that kind of hits at some of this points here on this 1.2. Strategy 3, concentrate higher density residential and mixed-use developments along primary corridors to support public transit. Again, that goes to, if there were to be transit extended here, there's an example that I mentioned about some Prairie when they initially got their extension. They chose a route that would be most sustainable, where the higher density, where you have the most potential for users. And so that's what that's kind of reinforcing. And that kind of goes with the NMU that we talked about wanting along Lacey on that front. And then number 4, encourage traditional neighborhood design developments that allow for missing middle and small lot housing. I don't know if everyone's seen this image, but it's definitely been out there for some time of, zoning in the past. You had more variability of unit types within a neighborhood, kind of what's shown there in that missing middle. Kind of zoning went to a certain direction, became more single-use developments, and so there's been a push to see this variety in housing types again. Mobility, the goal was implement safe, convenient, and attractive streets that are accessible for all ages, abilities, and modes of transportation. First strategy that was included here is develop a convenient and connected multimodal transportation system that links the neighborhood to the city and county. 2 is require proposed streets to connect to existing streets and intersections where practical. So that image shows if they're different landowners where that white line is, roads should be connecting through the developments where possible, not due to constraints of terrain. 3, discourage cul-de-sacs and dead-end streets in favor of connected streets that provide flexibility. And 4, design complete streets and utilize traffic calming and safety measures where appropriate to create a better street environment for pedestrians and cyclists. We gave a list of examples of some traffic calming measures that could be incorporated if necessary. I guess I should say I'm just going to go through all of them unless someone stops me and wants to have a conversation each. Economy. Goal is locate employment options near residential areas, supporting the local and regional economy and providing job opportunities. First strategy is attract businesses that meet local and regional needs, provide job opportunities and mix of uses, and expand property tax base. 2 is promote commercial and business park areas compatible with the scale of surrounding developments or screened to the extent practical. I like presenting the example, and I've done this in other plans, and noted this Fitchburg area that you see here, where you see a neighborhood blended with business park, both for pedestrian access, with the yellow line is shown, and the orange where it provides a connection to the neighborhood off of the main street through that business park. So it's not directly tied to it, but there is a direction that you don't have to go all the way around to connect to that business. And even in some of the buildings, and I don't know if this was intent, but you see smaller business park uses nearest the neighborhood, you see a much larger across the street. So there's that kind of breaking down the scale as you get to the neighborhood. Number 3, incorporate safe and convenient pedestrian, bicycle, and motor vehicle connections within and through commercial mixed use and business park developments. Quality of life, the goal we spoke about previously, maintain streetscapes and open spaces that are accessible to all residents for recreation and enhance neighborhood character. Strategy 1, design residential areas around community gathering places. 2, plan parks and varying in size and facilities to fulfill ranging recreation interests consistent with the Fitchburg POSP, which is, we used to call it CORPS, all right, so I always get this wrong what that acronym is.
Park and open space plan.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And then number 3, make intentional multimodal connections between local and regional parks and open spaces. This is an example back in some Prairie. If you've been there, it shows a variety of housing types, but also shows different kind of open spaces that are different, providing different character. There's more urban square in the north that's around mixed use. 4, design attractive streetscapes with street trees, lighting, and or low maintenance landscaping clusters along major roadways. And 5, plan and design public infrastructure that is sustainable and low maintenance. See the strong message of low maintenance on both of these. And number 5, create an economically and environmentally sustainable development pattern, protecting existing natural features. First strategy is protect and restore environments by integrating natural features into open spaces for recreation, public gathering, and flood protection and stormwater management. 2, preserve existing tree canopy to include woodlands that will not be quarried. 3, encourage high-density residential developments along collector arterial roadways. 4, explore options to recycle quarry byproducts through site development. 5, encourage energy-efficient buildings consistent with the city's energy targets. And 6, consider opportunities for alternative energy uses within the neighborhood. Anything you want to go back to on these?
Is there anything, so 5.4 quarry byproducts, are there any specific thoughts behind that? Is there anything that might happen because of the plan that wouldn't otherwise happen anyhow? It costs a lot to move material around, so what are we actually talking about?
My assumption would be using the stone in the development there, but
yeah, I mean, it helps that there's intentions from the quarry owners to develop on their own, right? I guess it'd have more of a messaging for ones that would sell the land off, because there's materials that you might need to crush specifically that you incorporate in roadways and others, other than just putting it within the land to flatten it. I think you're accurate that it's one of those implied in this neighborhood. Feel good strategy. I don't know if anyone's against it. So I don't know if you're asking to remove it based on that.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
you're probably right that it's not going to change what happens.
But it's, I mean, if something is able to happen here that doesn't normally happen elsewhere by virtue of the fact that it's, you know, it is an active quarry converting directly into development. Yeah, call it out and talk about it.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about
Can I
the,
just ask a question on the one
Yes.
related to traffic calming?
yes.
This is just for my own information understanding. Does traffic calming go in on the front end now, or
Or is that just an aspiration and a goal if it's needed? Or I was just trying to understand, because I know we've got a process where we determine, whether traffic calming is needed, but if it's a goal of the plan, do we put that in on the front end now, or?
It can be.
It can be, okay.
Sometimes it's better to do it on the front end so then you don't have to retrofit it after.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious as to what the approach is.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Can we look at the map one more time after going through all of it?
Sure.
One of the things that kind of struck me halfway through it was talking about the goal of having it be walkable to work. And it seems like not having anything that's commercial at all in the southern part of this development might not comport with that goal. And I was just wondering what you thought about that. And because all of the commercial uses are up to the north, and we've got a ton of residential in the actual opposite corner.
Yeah, I mean, we did evaluate that, and at one point we thought about lands that are outside of this area that could have been that. That was kind of in the bubble diagrams as such. I think as you get further south off of Lacey, the marketability of commercial there is not as strong, especially for the specific uses you're thinking of that the neighborhood would want to go to directly.
Right.
I think if we did a 5-minute walk radii on here, I don't think it's that extreme of a walk, but yes, it is a little bit more of a walk for those that might have goods that they want to carry. But I think it's marketability of the realities of it. It's a good idea, but then is it reality ever going to be built that way? You have the market for it? Unlikely.
And our high density zoning districts now do allow that small portion of commercial that.
Not yet. It's not
Never
passed.
mind. Never mind. That's not passed yet, but.
Well, I think
Well,
it's
maybe
a
there's an
good
opportunity,
idea,
yeah.
because I think when you concentrate
Yeah.
that many people having, a coffee shop
Yeah.
or maybe even a little convenience store type.
I mean, it won't hurt actually in my mind, and we can fill it out here, is we added that number 2, right? NMU allows for HDR
That's true.
with the option for commercial. So does it hurt anything to think about maybe that number 2? That to me, if there was a school nearby and some other uses right there of density, the option's there at least. It's not saying it has to be commercial.
Okay.
So I don't know, is that, speaking to the group, should we show number 2, which is new in this conversation, as NMU, it doesn't change what it was intending to be based on what we presented today. It just gives the opportunity for commercial.
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, especially to your point of like a coffee shop type of.
Anyone else?
Sure. It makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, I know there's an area in.
Number 2.
Over by, off Sain, that development where they have the little whiskey bar.
Sorry, what does HDR say right now? What is the assumption with HDR in terms of the ability to do neighborhood commercial?
I think what the proposal was up to 30% of the first floor facade could be commercial.
And so we're talking about just explicitly calling it out as a desirable location.
Well, that's not approved, so currently it's not allowed.
But still, in the plan, we can say neighborhood commercial is desirable at this intersection.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, NMU.
Okay, yeah. Got it. I wasn't fully tracking what was being suggested. Yeah, that makes sense. I would also note, the distance, I was just playing around with Google Maps. If you're walking from down here to up there, it's a mile. You've got to be someone comfortable with walking to want to do that as a commute, but that's not that long if you're comfortable with walking. It's a super easy bike ride.
Yeah.
If the grade is.
Yep. I live up on the hill again. I'm always coming home sweaty.
That's the right way to do it, not the other way.
We need a shop with a shower.
And the land to the west then is park?
No, that's pretty much all stormwater management. So we actually reduced the open space because we learned that we didn't need as much as we presented previously. So, but it's That stormwater is needed because that's an exit point for how it would be draining from the area. It also is a good buffer to the town properties adjacent to it as well.
The only reason I was asking the question is if we're talking a coffee shop and the viability of it. I know when this one opened over here, Oasis Cafe, you know, the original owner came to me and said, Mike, if I could just get this many more cars off of Fish Hatchery Road, because they weren't at the main intersection there and the visibility.
Yeah.
And he had it down to how many more cars would get him to profitability there. So I just didn't know if there was a way to have two right up to Fitchrona and reverse something. So that's my only question.
We're headed downhill here. We're on a slope, is that right?
I mean, part of it is, again, that idea that we're promoting the buffering to the town as well.
Yeah.
For not taking it all the way to Fitchburg.
At least here they would have visibility. It's
Yeah.
not like over here we got Gordon Flesh at the corner.
It'd be open space
Kind of
behind
blocked, you know, what was happening further in. But I know from an initial viability, they were struggling.
Yeah, so I think signage, visibility, and actually sometimes those storm ponds could be an amenity for the backside of that coffee shop or whatever you said is. All right, that was a good ad. Thank you. Look away if you don't want to see it go through fast. All right, now on to engineering. Nothing specifically updated on our assumptions that we presented this last time. Again, this is based on full build out. We selected certain use types based on the densities that we talked about or the use specifically in the future land use. We factored in, I guess one modification is, since we're working on two neighborhoods plans, this was the first one that came through, we did revise on, we looked at the highest ranges of future land use in the previous version. What we're seeing now is we're looking at the median of that range, but then we added a 20% conservative add-on. While it doesn't seem as important for this one, the other one was also like over numbering the number of units that really would go in. And there is some potential growth impacts just generally that there's 0.5 additional for outside areas that would run through the neighborhood. Another change is to actually look at it actually as an option A and B of all lands are residential or are those section that is labeled 6 actually business park. And so you're seeing the total trips you're showing there in option A and B. So try, you know, before we were just making a selection for those lands. That was kind of, this is more clear to saying it can happen either direction. It could be business park, it could be residential. We want to look at both options of how that impacts things. Ultimately, it doesn't impact severely, if you look at those numbers, too drastically between A and B. And so no change here. We confirmed for the warrants that there would need to be a controlled intersection at Commerce Park and Lacey. Desirability of a roundabout, because there will be a roundabout to the west at Fitchrona and Lacey, and there's one that's built at Seminole Highway as well. The collector A connection where the cloud is, that does not meet the warrants for a controlled intersection. There will be some noted potentially delays at full build out, but nothing that warranted a full controlled intersection. There are safety issues to go to the control when it's not warranted, so.
Which type of facility you're talking about when you say control?
Roundabout or signal.
Okay.
We did have a conversation with Town of Verona today, so to add a little bullet down here that there's potential development of lands that are from Tonto Trail down to the 40 line, which is just south of
Collector B.
Yeah. If I can get there, maybe. There's that line right over there that I can't show you, sorry. But there's potential development there. They currently are suggesting potentially a private drive connection, but not a through street. So that does potentially impact the thought of a collector B that may extend further west to have more east-west connectivity through this area. We do want to talk about, if it does get approved, where does that driveway line up? Because they may alter at least where we might represent that specifically.
I want to come back to that topic of town of Verona development when we talk about sewer.
Okay,
For the roundabout, are they single or double lane roundabout?
I would believe they're single, but
Just single.
I don't know if it's been evaluated in full. It takes quite a bit of traffic to warrant a double.
Okay.
Utilities, just rehashing that these lands are going to be quarried into a certain endpoint, but then built up to allow for utilities. So here's just kind of a generality of how we laid that out. We used the reclamation plan for lands east, meaning Fitchburg Hills, and then west of that main dividing line of the landowners, which is between the business park and HDR. Again, that's the property line, showing 2% grades generally all to the west and south. So this is very preliminary. It helps a little bit with the designing of the utilities and depths that we might be seeing from the roads where you have the utilities underneath it. But this is no way suggesting this is the final outcome of the grading. So this is what we shared last time. General flow, where the basins would be. What you're going to see changed here is two things. And arrow might be slight. This arrow might be different now. Actually, we're going to be getting it. Basically, all the stormwater is going to be in the eastern edge there. There's two wet basins, and then the infiltration's in the center of that. So the combining and putting that all there, we had some efficiencies, basin size. We also had to slightly change the requirements. What that allowed for is a larger community park and pushes all those uses, the stormwater to the east. You also don't see one noted here in the south in this little park down right from that arrow. We were able to achieve what we need on the western side. And this topic came up last time. Wolf property is basically what was collector deed. This road, Wolf splits it to the east and Pandora land to the west. So what that means, the question was, we're not showing any stormwater management in the Wolf property. We're putting in all that requirement on a different landowner. So if this were to develop this way, there would need to be some discussions about cost sharing on that, because one gets more development, one is getting less development from that scenario.
On the east side, area 705 drains off. That's backyards draining off only.
Correct.
Is there a little bit of compensatory additional treatment to the north to
Correct.
handle that?
Correct.
Okay.
Everyone understand the question on that? Just make sure it's not lost. There is just like 700 as well on the south end. There's portions of those backyards that would also exit without treatment.
And the entire east side here is subject to additional volume requirements?
Correct. It's
right?
closed depression to the east. So it's a higher stay-on requirement for treatment and infiltration. Water, connected and loop systems that you're looking at, again, the road network may change, but what this is illustrating is that there's no dead ends where it doesn't connect back. So you don't see it extend on collector A west of the north-south street, so it's not connected to Fitrona because services will be coming from that north-south road. Similarly, when you look down at collector B to the south end, it doesn't extend further west. Generally, the 12-inch on collector A in Commerce Park, 10-inch for the business park uses and multifamily frontages, 8-inch is in the rest of the area. No need for city well or reservoir here. Sanitary design. If you read the memo, one of the clear assumptions we did make that differs from a lot of plans has been using 100 gallons per day as an assessment. So you see that little table in the lower right. You have the uses and the number of the metric. In most cases, we're talking about residential, it's the number of units. There's a qualifying 100 gallons per day, we're using 80. Why is that is an old time number that's stuck around yet. A lot of all your bathrooms, all the fixtures are much better flow, lower flow. And there's even been a study in state that 51 is the average. So we're still being conservative at 80. Why that's impactful is we're talking about then peak flow, which is the last column there, and how does that impact the sizing of pipes. What is also different from last time, you see the big red line there, we previously showed everything being served from the west. But what it's really brought up, and it made a good point, is that these are individual developments, can't wait for one developer to do the other potentially. So there is a connection point on Lacey. I really wish I got my mouse, but it's right there that we connect into, and we'll see on the next page. So the eastern half will be served from Lacey, western half from either Fitchburg or MMSD extension of their interceptor. There is a restriction on Lacey Road connection that was noted in the memo that 30% of the capacity on there for what's remaining on that connection is for other developments that may happen along Lacey. And so we're showing between 1.013 CFS to 1.226 CFS. If you take out 30% of what's remaining in that pipe by its size, the number allowable is 0.961 CFS. So you see there's a discrepancy there of what could be served by this development, making the assumption again at the median of the land use range. So either development is not as high as we're projecting, or there needs to be a separate pipe connection. That could be along Lacey, which then you'll have dual pipes there, or is it going to be the collector A that connects to Seminole? Maybe that's a way that you get additional, or you have to cross over and tap into what might develop west. So that's what's happening on the east side impacts on the, yes.
So on the east side,
Yeah.
Where the collector is, where you had your arrow there on Lacey, it's gonna come into the property right under
Let's go to that.
concrete and buildings and everything?
Well, I mean, if you gotta connect here, either you have to, I mean, we felt the best routing is through here where you're mostly gonna be on the line of open space and MHD.
So what if there was a nice neighbor to the east and that collector went to the property line on the east and picked up potentially 2 properties and came down the property line and then cut in?
This is not policy, this is feasibility analysis,
Yes.
right? And so developer, property owner can
Right.
propose alternatives, and if they're feasible, the city would be fine.
But I'm brainstorming right now. I just saw it and it's like there's gonna be a pipe going under concrete. That doesn't make the most sense, but.
Potentially concrete. I mean, the reality is it's a swath of area that you might have roads and open space. But I agree, another route could be.
It limits what can be done there.
Another route could become, if it's feasible.
Yeah.
We just wanna make sure that we can serve the areas and what are restrictions to it.
Yeah. I was just asking a brainstorming type question.
And the city then would be weighing like, okay, so we have this pipe that's underneath the berm for stormwater, a series of stormwater ponds, is that viable? If we need to tear up the pipe, are we tearing up?
No, I'm talking about farther to the east. I mean, it's not under the stormwater. It's on shared property potentially, or on somebody else's property.
Got it.
Yeah. under a fire roof maybe.
That's doable.
It could run down that line and then service everything you needed in theory, right? Because gravity will help and everything else, right?
Could you go back to the stormwater that showed the ponds? It's not too much trouble.
And again, the actual shapes of these and
Or
final
flexible.
design,
Right.
the size might be even smaller a little bit if you.
Right, just gotta be able to handle that much water.
No, that's not, that's, I just want, there was a couple things I want to look at.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, I mean, I just
Oh.
was looking at it, because there's literally another connector 15 yards down Lacey to the east. If that, it goes into our property.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what made me think of it, is they're so close.
Sure, if there's a way to work a deal and make it a best served uses for everyone, I don't think the city's opposed to that, we're just making sure it's functional based on what we know right now.
Okay, that's all, I just was curious, yeah. And is that an 8 or a 10 on Lacey?
It's 10.
It's a 10 on Lacey? Are you sure? Because our paperwork says 8.
Is it?
The as-built says 8.
I don't know.
As-built would be right, that's not a good, if we're basing it on 10.
As-built.
I'll trust the as-built, but.
I'm pretty sure the
okay.
as-built says 8. I can check with our
All right, I'll
engineers, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were sent.
And if we have it labeled on here.
It'd be worth checking, it'd be worth checking.
Can't read that.
So that sanitary line coming up through the town of Verona, that's not there right now, correct?
Correct.
It's just that's the kind of low point and the natural place for that to want to be. And if that development in the town of Verona is serious, hopefully someone is second guessing whether they do an unsewered development around a major sewer collector, but B, to your interests, make sure you have that route protected through your extraterritorial review.
It's a condo development, so there's no platting.
If the route goes with what we had presented in in our documents we shared with you, the intention was to connect up to Fitchburg. There are some issues with that, also right now, the clay pipe. So there are already intention of the city to line that. If this were to continue connecting there, then resizing, upgrading that would be required to serve full build out here. Latest conversation is maybe MMSD routing is the preferred, but yes, then you have the hurdle of going through town lands there to achieve that. So that's still being assessed now, further.
Yeah.
Did we hit on what you were gonna hit on, Jason, on that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're talking about the risks with potential imminent development there.
Yeah.
Any other comments from anyone or questions? So that was what we wanted to cover tonight. We do have the open house coming up next week, next Thursday. So basically presenting the information you're seeing today with a little more of just background in case some people come that weren't part of the process previously. That will be at the library.
Yeah, at the library.
Time-wise, I didn't have it on here. Was it?
5 o'clock start, I think. Pretty sure it's 5 o'clock start.
An updated schedule is that we're trying to work through next meeting will be a draft plan, actually. And, that would be our last meeting as this group.
That's the plan, yep.
That's the intention, but then it will be going through several months process from going to committees and commissions. There'll be an open house, public hearing both at Plan Commission and at council.
Yeah.
So this may go into August, September of next year. But your work other than it'd be great if you join these other meetings, is through February, March.
What's your agenda or schedule for the open house? You can do a presentation at a certain time?
There will be, at the start, maybe it will be 5-10 minutes in, I'll try to keep it to 20-ish minutes. But otherwise, there will be opportunities to comment on things and have maps up and such.
Thank you.
On the back end, after the neighborhood plan is adopted, this document is also going to serve eventually as the submittal to CARPC?
I think so.
Correct.
We need to have some
understanding?
conversation about both.
That's the
plans.
intention.
Yeah.
So it saves us a little efficiencies on the back end
Yep.
by doing that. Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else anyone wants to cover while we're here? Okay. We'll try to be working through with staff on the draft plan and give you enough time to review a lengthy document.
Yeah.
Maybe we give it in pieces. We're still talking through that potentially. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all. I know this is a lot and we're almost through, so thank you all for your time.